Instead, we're moving to a panel discussion now, so I'd like to invite Spencer Stevens of Sony Pictures Entertainment back to the stage, as well as Andrew Fisher from Shazam. I seem to have lost my microphone. But I'd also like to invite Emmanuel Belville, Vice President of Video Services from Etisalat, and Alvaro de Nicola, CTO TV for BT. Okay, so perhaps to start, Spencer and Andrew need no introduction, but Emmanuel, perhaps if you could say a few words about yourself and your organization.
Yeah, so Etisalat is one of the largest telecom operator in emerging countries, headquartered in Abu Dhabi, and having its footprint covering 15 countries in Middle East, Asia, and Africa. We have 150 million mobile subscribers, a few million fixed broadband subscribers, some IPTV subscribers in the United Arab Emirates, in Pakistan, and in Saudi. And we launched OTT TV services 1 year ago in the Emirates, and in September, our sister company Mobile in Saudi launched its OTT in Saudi Arabia.
And Alvaro, if you could introduce yourself.
I'm Alvaro de Nicolas. I'm CTO for television and BT Sport in BT. Basically, British Telecom last year we made a big bet with becoming a broadcaster. Really, we bought quite a lot of rights for football, the Premiership League, as well as women's tennis, rugby, Rally Championship, Ultimate Fighting, bunch of other things, and basically we've been on a journey transforming ourselves from being just a telco to becoming a telco and a broadcaster. Alongside that, we launched in the 1st of August last year. We have 4.5 million BT Sport subscribers today, a little bit more than that. Some of them through wholesale, not direct, but a lot of them direct. We have a lot of them, about over 2 million that have downloaded our BT Sport application on iOS, Android, and also access it on the web. We're having quite a lot of success, even more than we thought, on these multi-screen apps for BT Sport, and basically welcome to share that experience with you.
Okay, so I think I'd like to start with a topic which seemed to come up in a few of the presentations. It's the idea of the second screen. It seems just from the people speaking that there's plenty of types of company that could be involved. My question is, who should be involved in second screen experiences? Is it all different players? Should operators, content providers, broadcasters, third parties such as Shazam? Perhaps Andrew, if you could start.
Well, you said who should be involved in second screen, so we clearly believe that everybody should be involved and everybody should have a second screen strategy. And as we referenced in the presentation, you need to define what second screen means. A lot of people think it's about something that's contextually relevant, that's accompanying a show at the same time, and we would say that doesn't have to necessarily be the case. That the notion is that you've got more than just a television set by which people are engaging with the content, and that determines the second screen strategy. The other thing is that it's fine to have multiple threads or multiple elements to your second screen strategy. We often get asked, if you are working with a broadcaster around a TV show, what happens to their own second screen app that they've built themselves? And our response to that is, well, very often in the Shazam experience, we'll actually promote that app to the audience, because that app tends to be for the superfan around the show, because they're motivated to go to the trouble and effort of downloading a specific app for a specific show. And so let's help in that respect, and actually let's promote that to people that want to become superfans of a show. It's not necessarily going to change the Shazam business, because we're about ubiquity, but it is another motivating factor for our partners. So we think everyone should have a second screen strategy. We think that it can take various forms, both in show and out of show, and we also think that people can have more than one element to that strategy in working with ourselves.
Okay, so Spencer, I mean, does that match your view? Do you see working with multiple different partners?
I mean, Sony Pictures Entertainment has multiple business models. We make movies, we make TV shows that go on other people's channels. We have channels ourselves, particularly in Europe and Asia. And I think each of those has a relevant second screen strategy that may not be the same as the others. But even if you look at something like a movie, I talked about how you would add extras to a movie, which is pretty much the sort of thing you'd want to do with a purchase or some sort of streaming model, on-demand model. But if you go to that movie in a broadcast channel, then maybe it is more relevant for the broadcasters to provide that. I totally agree with what Andrew said. Everybody should be involved in it. And from our point of view, we want to provide compelling content that can go on that, and part of that can go on the second screen. But that's not the only way to do it. It should not only be our content that goes to our movies necessarily.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, where does that leave operators? I remember speaking to someone from Fox International Channels, and they'd launched a second screen app, and it was available all across Europe, localized for different versions. And a pay TV operator asked, well, how can we help? And they said, well, suppose you could develop your own version if you wanted. I mean, do you see a role for operators to play in the second screen area, helping content providers and advertisers?
Do you want to go?
No, I think that as a telecom company, our main objective is to increase loyalty, subscribers' loyalty. It's not part of the core business of a telecom company to deploy over-the-top video services. It's just one of the nice assets to reduce the churn based on our internal studies and mix of studies from different international consulting firms. We can really realize that we can divide the churn by 2 when we are able, as a telecom company, to offer a multi-screen experience in addition to the basic triple play package. Mm-hmm. So definitely, it's a strategic asset, but it's not yet core business for telecom companies. Mm-hmm.
I think for us, I think there's mainly 3 things that I think we can offer as an operator. I think we can offer, and all of them being part of having an integrated experience across the big screen and smaller displays. I mean, both Andrew and Spencer touched on the fact that the content had to be engaging. As a broadcaster, I want customers to keep coming back to that content. As an operator, I want to provide content providers and application providers with the best superhighway that they can have. So the best, I'm just a vehicle for the content. I want to be a Ferrari then. Because ultimately, customers are going to vote with their feet or with their fingers in this case, and they're going to go away if we don't give them a good experience. I think we can focus on the customer experience. We can focus on increased usability, so we can make setup earlier on the day. It was usability was mentioned by the PACE speaker. I think it's very important. I think protection of your content is something that we can offer as well, which is also important for broadcasters and content providers. I think we can provide a better service. We are, in many cases, mommy BT, and people are going to call us. If Netflix doesn't work, they're going to call us. If Shazam doesn't work, they're going to call us. They're not going to call them. So I think we have to be there for our customers, and we have to be able to provide that service. There are things also that make their life easier, like aggregated search across different channels, across different applications. We can do recommendations, not just of content pieces from our channels, linear and VOD, but also from YouTube, from Sony, from IMDb. We can recommend applications or games. Why not? If they are relevant to the content. I think overall, I believe that we have a lot to offer. If you see Netflix, for instance, just last week announced that we had the best broadband in Britain, despite the fact that they have an agreement with Virgin, because they think that customers are going to get a better service on our network. So I do think that we have a role to play.
Okay. So on the second screen in particular, Spencer, you talked about the need for standards. Do you think we will get there in the end?
Yeah, and let me clear. I mean, I'm talking about standards as to how you create the app, how you deliver it, and stuff like that. I would certainly not presume that you need anything much more than the framework you're in. But I think we are getting there already. We're seeing standards coming out. People using HTML5 in particular. There are other things they're using as well, JavaScript and so on. But HTML5 has the promise of a great deal of ubiquity. And I think it's, generally speaking, when open standards are what prevail, that's really what drives the market, allows innovation and so on.
Mm-hmm. And is that something you're in favour of, Andrew, or do you believe it's better for a single player such as yourself to develop the best of breed technology?
So we deliver a platform by which people put technology layers on top. So there's still a technology consideration around a set-top box versus a mobile phone, and then within the mobile ecosystem, there's multiple operating systems. And we're not a content originator. So if a broadcaster wants to make their second screen content available, or Sony Pictures wants to create content around second screen, in order to distribute that, there is still an obstacle that has to be overcome in terms of different standards, depending on the device itself. So common standards, unified standards are beneficial to driving take-up around second screen. Mm-hmm. And historically, one of the challenges with mobile has been there's so many disparate operating systems, whether it's a BlackBerry device or a Nokia device, that the world has gravitated more towards iOS and Android. And that, in part, has helped publishers of content, owners of content, actually distribute that to users and lower the cost of supporting multiple devices. So that is changing, but there's still a long way to go in that respect, and common standards can only be beneficial to user adoption.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in terms of the second screen opportunity, where do you see the distinct revenue opportunities for all different types of players?
So if you're looking at me, I don't want to dominate this conversation, but just very briefly from our perspective, our hypothesis is that if people are engaging with content around a film or a TV show, they're going to be more inclined to engage with an ad on TV because Shazam would be more top of mind, the device is more likely to be open, the behavior is more likely to be that it's just a continuation of what I've been doing around the show to then engage with a brand advertiser. And the motivation, the real motivation in terms of monetization is the TV advertising budgets. $300 billion spent worldwide, $70 billion spent in the States alone. And the proposition here is that we can make that investment more effective for the brands themselves. And so what we're trying to do is capture a proportion of the $300 billion that's spent worldwide. Not necessarily people thinking of us as a digital platform and they have to allocate a digital budget. This is about traditional television expenditure and being able to evidence that it's generating a higher return on investment for the brands, and therefore they would reward us for that in terms of how we can contribute to that improved ROI.
Do you think that's a big proportion or a small proportion? Could you put a size on it at all?
In terms of?
Of that proportion of the advertising revenues you might be able to capture?
Well, when we started in 2010 in North America, we were selling campaigns for tens of thousands of dollars. We're now in the multi-million dollars. And we also have relationships with people like Sony Pictures where they will Shazam enable maybe 5 of their movies. So Spider-Man, Men in Black 3, etc. will just be called off as part of a more long-term arrangement between ourselves and the brand. And so we've built the average order value on the basis of results and what we've been able to evidence by way of feedback. So low multiple millions of dollars for a campaign is still a fraction of a $70 billion market in America, but it's grown significantly. There's still a long way to go, but if you compare that to the total spend of mobile advertising, you just look at the UK market, total UK mobile advertising this year will be about £2 billion, and that includes display advertising for things like Google search. You compare that to TV spend, which is about £4 billion in the UK, it's still significantly higher. So that's why we're interested in trying to marry up digital and traditional media and trying to create value for the advertiser by combining the two together.
Okay. So another topic I'd like to touch on is content discovery and recommendation. there's talk of the golden age of TV and ever bigger budgets for cinema, and as well as all this wealth of user-generated content. But I get the sense we're not very far down the line in terms of having a great experience of discovering that great content. What's your view, Spencer?
I guess my personal view is that really content discovery is actually one of the biggest issues around, and as we move away from primarily focusing on channels which are curated to some extent and have got a brand identity, and move out to a vast pool of content, what YouTube has, what Netflix has, ways of finding what you want on that, and finding it against and I use this phrase in the data communication sense, the noise of the channel, finding the signal that you want to see in there becomes increasingly difficult. And if we look at some recommendation engines, for example, just look at what I have at home with Netflix, the recommendation engine that comes up on Netflix is pretty much confused, because I watch stuff by myself, I watch stuff with my wife, she watches stuff by herself, our son watches stuff by himself, and he watches stuff with his girlfriend, right? So there's 5 different perspectives on taste that box is trying to accommodate, and it produces the most bizarre results at times. It's a real challenge. If I'm watching by myself and I'm using one of the Netflix profiles, it pretty much figures out I want to watch British TV shows and British films. Great, okay, that works well. But in the broader sense of it, and if it wasn't somebody with such narrow tastes as I might have, then it becomes really difficult. And the problem with that is that if you're promoting, if you're a smaller independent content producer, and you've got tremendous opportunity to reach an audience on the internet, and you can, with a very small number of people in each country, you can build a vast audience. But at the same time, how do you cut through the noise? How do you make yourself heard above that? And that's a real challenge, and I really don't have any solution for it.
I mean, looking at it from the consumer point of view, for example, never mind whether Netflix's content recommendation system is excellent or needs work. When I get home, I think maybe I want to watch a sci-fi film. I might have to go into Netflix, come back out again, go into Blinkbox, go into all these different types of content. I'm wondering what role there might be for operators to be able to aggregate or search across those different services. Is that something you see being feasible, Alvaro?
I mean, we're doing it today. We're doing it with YouView. So YouView, you have a player for on-demand, ITV player. You have all these different players in your set-top box, and we're searching the metadata across all of them and offering the customer, what is it available for them across all these players. And then you can select, and we're not disintermediating the brands either, because we're making them very visible on screen. You can then select the asset that you've chosen to see, and then go straight within that player to see that asset. So I think that is possible. It requires a joint effort of the industry, and it would require a joint effort with Netflix, with Blinkbox, and other providers. There are things that can be done better, like we would like customers to be able to see what is free, not only what content is free, like the content that we see from the public service providers, but also what is free to them because they are subscribed to it through BTVision, for instance, or other services. I think that would make things better as well. The other thing is, our Google panelists mentioned that we don't know who's watching. Well, we do. We do. We know who's watching because we know the line. We might not know if it's you or your wife, but we can narrow it down to some specific set of tastes within a household, which can help with the recommendations that we make.
Okay.
The fact is that in terms of user experience, recommendation is the key. So, and recommendation cannot be the same depending on the screen. Because if you want to watch some video on your TV set, it's a kind of lazy experience because you are still laying as traditional TV viewer. Whatever is, if the content is on demand or linear, or if it's coming from the internet or from a dish, but it's a lazy experience. So you don't want to spend 15 minutes before finding the right content to watch. While on the second screen, it's much more an internet-based experience, and where recommend engine is a key as well, but it cannot maybe recommend exactly the same thing as the thing it would be recommended on your TV set. And here, there are a lot of improvement to be done.
Spencer.
So I just want to add a couple of things there. I think, first of all, there's always a danger with recommendation engines so that you remove serendipity from the search, right? I mean, sometimes, you're scrolling through a channel guide and you just see something that's got an interesting title and you decide to look at it and watch it. And I think it was also the fact that there are really two ways of finding content. You can browse for it and you can search for it. And the search for it makes you think you understand something about what you want to watch, maybe a title in the most limited case, but I want to watch sci-fi. And then there's the question of, let me browse, let me scroll down Netflix, let's see the various categories that it's designed that might be of interest to me and browse through them. So I think there's the whole thing about how do you find content, and particularly how do you find content if you don't know what you actually want, right? I think that's really where the challenge lies.
Okay. So do we have any questions from the floor for any of the panelists? I have a question for you, Emmanuel. You mentioned earlier your Etisalat's massive base of mobile users. What distinct opportunities do you see for video for people where a mobile phone might be their first video-enabled device?
In most of the country where we are present, mobile has a stronger penetration compared to TV. So definitely there are a number of opportunities to deliver video content to our subscribers. But in most countries, most of our countries, the bottleneck is the broadband access, and especially mobile broadband access, because bandwidth is not always there to deliver the right quality coming to video.
Okay. Well, I've been served notice by Lawrence, so I think we better wrap up now. But if you could put your hands together and thank the panelists for their contribution.